My fiancée hit me on the eve of the wedding, so I kicked her out of the house and cancelled the wedding. Hello everyone. I've been contemplating whether to share this chapter of my life, but I believe articulating it might offer some clarity. It's been a few weeks since the events unfolded, and while I stand by my decision, the reality still feels surreal. I was engaged to a woman I envisioned spending my life with, but a single night altered that trajectory. Allow me to explain. My name is Walter, I'm 29, and I work in information technology. I've always been laid back, perhaps to a fault. I prefer resolving issues through dialogue rather than confrontation. My ex-fiancée, Mildred, is 27 and works in marketing. She's the epitome of charisma, outgoing, energetic, and often the center of attention. Initially, her vivacious personality was captivating, her passion and determination were infectious. However, over time, I began to notice that her fervor sometimes bordered on obstinacy. There were subtle signs I chose to overlook, like the time we attended a dinner with my colleagues, and she remarked on my attire in front of everyone, laughing it off as a joke. Or how she always insisted on choosing the restaurant for our outings, dismissing my suggestions with an eye roll or a comment like, "I guess my preferences don't matter." Initially, I attributed it to her particular tastes, but it became evident that she had a penchant for having things her way. If she desired something, she was relentless until she achieved it. I dismissed these incidents, reasoning that no one is without flaws. Fast forward 4 years, and we're engaged. Wedding planning was, to put it mildly, intense. Mildred envisioned a grand, picture-perfect ceremony with over 200 guests, an opulent venue, and elaborate floral arrangements. In contrast, I yearned for something more intimate and manageable. Our finances were modest, and I couldn't fathom depleting our savings for a single day. Each time I voiced my concerns, it escalated into an argument. She accused me of being indifferent about the wedding or unwilling to make an effort. I tried to convey that my reservations weren't about the wedding itself but about being pragmatic. It wasn't solely about the guest list, every detail had to align with her exact vision. I recall a particular instance when she spent hours deliberating with the florist over centerpiece colors, snapping at me when I suggested a simpler option. "If you're not going to take this seriously, why are you even here?" she retorted, disregarding the fact that I'd left work early to attend the appointment. It wasn't about compromise, it was about her prevailing. Then came that fateful night. We were in the living room, engulfed by the chaos of wedding preparations. Papers were strewn everywhere, sticky notes adhered to various surfaces, and a hefty binder brimming with plans lay open on the coffee table. Mildred had dedicated months to compiling that binder, and now it seemed to be the only thing anchoring her sanity. She was pacing, her words tumbling out in a relentless rant about finalizing the guest list. She was fixated on inviting a multitude of distant relatives I couldn't even identify, cousins thrice removed, their children, their plus ones. It felt excessive. I sat on the couch, observing her whirlwind, searching for the right moment to interject. "Mildred," I began cautiously, "do we really need to invite people we hardly know? Shouldn't this be about those closest to us?" She halted mid-step, slowly turning to face me, her eyes sharp, posture rigid. "Why don't you take this seriously, Walter? Do you even care about this wedding?" Her question felt like a punch to the gut. I felt the tension rise but endeavored to remain calm. "Of course I care," I replied evenly. "But it's not about the number of attendees or the extravagance. It's about us, about embarking on our life together." Her expression darkened, and her voice elevated. "You just don't get it. This isn't just about us, it's about celebrating with those who've supported our families. This is supposed to be the most significant day of our lives, and you're treating it like a business transaction." "It's not that," I said, striving to keep my frustration in check. "I just think we need to be realistic. We can't afford to invite half the state. That won't make the day special." Her laugh was short and bitter. "Realistic? You mean cheap, right? You don't care about making this day memorable, you just care about the cost." "Mildred, come on," I said, my voice tightening. "That's not fair. I'm trying to prevent us from going into debt over this. Isn't starting our marriage on solid ground what matters?" "You always do this," she snapped, stepping closer, her tone sharp enough to cut. "You make me feel ridiculous for wanting something beautiful. Why do I even bother trying to make this special when you clearly don't care?" I stood up, my frustration boiling over. "Don't put words in my mouth. I care, but I'm not going to pretend that throwing money at it will make it better. This is supposed to be about love, not putting on a show for people we barely know." She was trembling now, her face flushed, hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You're impossible," she said through gritted teeth. "You don't hear me. You never hear me." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I thought the tension might dissolve into something softer, perhaps an opportunity to de-escalate. But then she closed the distance between us abruptly. "Mildred, let's just..." Before I could finish, her hand came down hard across my face. The slap echoed in the ensuing silence, leaving a sharp sting on my cheek and an even deeper one in the pit of my stomach. For a moment, I stood there, stunned. I'd never been in a situation like that before. It felt as though time had frozen. My cheek burned, but it wasn't the pain that unsettled me, it was the sheer disbelief. This was someone I loved, someone I was supposed to marry, and she had just crossed a line I never anticipated she would. I stared at her, my mind racing to process what had just happened. Her expression shifted immediately from fury to shock, her mouth slightly open, face pale. "Walter," she whispered, her voice shaky and unsteady. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't." I couldn't speak for a moment. I could feel my chest rising and falling as I fought to maintain my composure. Reflecting, there had been moments leading up to this, the way she'd throw verbal jabs when she didn't get her way or escalate every disagreement until I was the one who conceded to keep the peace. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was the culmination of something that had been simmering for a long time. Finally, I stood up, slow and deliberate, meeting her eyes with a calmness that surprised even me. "Pack your things," I said, my voice quiet but resolute. Her eyes widened, and she took a half step back, her hands clutching each other. "What?" "Walter, wait." "No, I didn't mean it. You have to believe me. I wasn't thinking. I was just so..." "Stop," I interrupted, holding up my hand. "I don't care what your excuse is. You put your hands on me, Mildred." "Stop," I interrupted, holding up my hand. "I don't care what your excuse is. You put your hands on me, Mildred. That's not something I'll ever tolerate. Get your things. You need to leave." She began crying almost instantly, desperate, loud sobs that echoed in the room. "Please, just let me explain. I wasn't myself. I didn't mean to." "There's nothing to explain," I said firmly. "You crossed a line." She tried to come closer, hands out as if she could undo what had happened, but I stepped back, arms crossed. My face was burning, not from the slap anymore, but from the humiliation, the disbelief, the finality of it all. Mildred stood frozen for a moment, trying to read my expression. When it became clear I wasn't going to budge, she grabbed her purse and a few of her things. Her hands trembled as she reached for her keys, eyes darting around the room like she was looking for something to cling to. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. When the door finally shut behind her, the silence that filled the house was unlike anything I'd experienced before. I sat back down on the couch, numb, staring at the wedding binder on the table, her carefully curated pages, sticky notes, printed photos, venue pamphlets. The things we were supposed to build a life on. They meant nothing now. I realized then that a 4-year relationship had unraveled in 15 minutes. And I didn't feel regret. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls. Messages. Missed notifications. It seemed like the news had spread overnight. Kendra, Mildred, I reminded myself, must have told people already. I sighed and decided it was time to start the hard part, informing my side of the family. First call went to my parents. My mom answered with cheerful energy, as if she was expecting an update on cake tastings or tux fittings. "Walter. Good morning. So, did you and Mildred finally pick a color scheme?" I took a breath. "Mom, there's not going to be a wedding." There was a pause. "What?" "It's over. I ended the engagement. Mildred's out of the house." The silence that followed was far heavier. "What happened?" she finally asked, with that careful tone only mothers use, concern and quiet panic all rolled into one. "She hit me," I said, keeping my voice even. Another pause. A long one this time. "She what?" "She slapped me. During a fight over the wedding. And it wasn't the first red flag, just the final one." "Oh, Walter," she didn't say much after that, just listened. Her voice had lost all of its earlier enthusiasm. "My dad didn't call me directly, but I knew he'd be told. I didn't expect anyone to be thrilled, but I didn't expect the flood of pushback from people either. Not after what happened. Over the next few days, I made call after call to cancel everything. The venue coordinator was sympathetic, but still asked about the deposit. "Keep it," I said. "We won't be needing the space." I repeated the same explanation to the caterer, the photographer, the band. Each phone call was like reliving the moment all over again, only this time, the emotion didn't hurt, it just left me drained. The dream had dissolved, and I had to clean up its remains. That's when the messages started coming in from Mildred. At first, they were long and emotional. Full of apologies. She told me she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. That she knew she'd made a mistake. That she'd been stressed. That she didn't mean it. Then, the tone changed. She started sending me guilt-ridden paragraphs about how I was being cold, how I was overreacting, how I was ruining our future over one mistake. After that, it turned desperate. "You're destroying me. Everyone's asking what happened. I don't know what to tell them." I didn't respond to any of it. What was there to say? She knew what she'd done. And nothing she said was undoing it. But it didn't stop with her. Our mutual friends started picking sides. My closest friend, Elliot, called to check on me. "Man, I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm getting there," I said honestly. "You did the right thing," he said. "That's not love. That's control. That's volatility. You don't want that in your life forever." I appreciated it. But not everyone was so understanding. Mildred's closest friend, Paula, started posting online. Vague status updates and cryptic messages, none of them naming me but all of them obviously about me. "Some people just can't handle a strong woman," she wrote one morning. "They'd rather be worshipped than challenged." I didn't respond. I didn't even feel the anger. It just annoyed me. The people who knew me understood the truth. The rest didn't matter. But what really bothered me was how Mildred's parents handled it. Her mother called me 2 days after it ended. Her voice was gentle, a bit shaky, but insistent. "Walter, please don't throw everything away. She's been under so much pressure lately." "She didn't mean to." "I'm sorry," I said. "But I'm not marrying someone who thinks it's okay to strike their partner. No matter the reason." There was a pause. "She loves you." "I know she does," I said quietly. "But love doesn't excuse violence." Later that evening, her father called. His tone was more direct. "I don't know what went on between the two of you, but this kind of thing, it reflects badly on everyone involved. Especially you, if you don't handle it right." That caught me off guard. "With all due respect, sir, I'm more concerned with personal boundaries than reputations." He didn't say much after that. Just grumbled and hung up. By the end of the week, I felt emotionally weathered. I wasn't broken, and I wasn't grieving, not in the usual way. I just felt heavy. Worn out. Then, as if on cue, the whispers began. Someone, probably Paula, started telling people that I had overreacted. That Mildred was just overwhelmed. That it was a one-time thing. That I was too sensitive. That I made the whole ordeal public to humiliate her. A few people reached out to hear my side, though I could tell they didn't actually want the truth. They just wanted something juicy to compare stories. She said she was stressed, one message read. "You didn't have to kick her out over that, did you?" I left it on read. None of them were in that room when she raised her hand to me. None of them had felt that slap or the years of tension that led up to it. And despite all the drama and noise and people choosing sides, I noticed something strange. I felt better. For the first time in months, maybe even years, my house was quiet. Peaceful. The air felt lighter. There were no more arguments, no more raised voices over flower arrangements or seating charts or guest lists. I could breathe again. But the thing that sat heavy on my chest wasn't the breakup, it was a question I couldn't shake. Why did she react the way she did? Why that slap? It felt intentional. Calculated. Like she wanted something from it. And when I started replaying her behavior leading up to that moment, the constant arguments, the defensiveness, the way she tried to spin the narrative after it happened, it all started to click. Maybe that slap wasn't just about frustration. Maybe she was hoping I'd lose control. So she wouldn't have to take responsibility. The idea nagged at me. Not just the slap, but everything that followed. The texts, the way Mildred painted herself as the one who'd been hurt, the way she spun it to our mutual friends. None of it added up. She didn't seem genuinely sorry for what she had done, only sorry for what came after. It didn't feel like remorse. It felt like damage control. The more I thought about it, the more the threads started to unravel. There had been warning signs, ones I'd ignored or minimized. Times when she'd twist the truth during an argument, subtly making me question whether I was being fair. Times when I'd concede just to avoid the emotional roller coaster. It had all been part of a slow, persistent erosion of my voice in the relationship. But that night? That slap? That was something else entirely. It felt strategic. And then came the call that changed everything. Lauren, a mutual friend of both mine and Mildred's, reached out unexpectedly. She wasn't one for drama or gossip, and she rarely got involved in other people's business. But she asked to meet in person. "Something's been bothering me," she said over the phone. "And I think you need to hear it. But not over a call." That's all it took to get my attention. We met at a small diner we used to frequent as a group back when things with Mildred were still simple. Lauren was already seated in a corner booth when I arrived. Her coffee sat untouched, her eyes fixed on the table. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. She looked up. "Thanks for coming. What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my stomach was already twisting into knots. She took a deep breath. "This isn't easy to say, but I think you need to know. It's about Mildred." Of course it was. She went on, her voice quiet. "One of my friends was out at a bar a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before you ended things. She saw Mildred there, with someone." I already knew. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. Lauren continued. "They were holding hands. Kissing. It wasn't subtle. The guy was, well, you probably know who it was." I did. "Clarence," I said flatly. She nodded. Clarence had always been a point of tension in our relationship. Mildred described him as a friend from work, but there was something in the way she talked about him, too casual, too rehearsed. I'd only met him once, briefly, at a work function. And even then, I remember the way he hovered a little too closely, the way she leaned a little too easily into his space. "You have proof?" I asked. Lauren hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She scrolled for a moment, then turned the screen to me. There it was. Blurry, but clear enough. Clarence and Mildred, arms around each other, standing by the bar. Her hand rested on his chest. His lips were close to her cheek. I stared at the photo, a strange calmness washing over me. Like my mind was catching up with what my instincts had been whispering for months. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked. "Because I didn't know what to do with it before," she said. "I didn't want to be in the middle of it. But after everything that happened with the wedding, and the slap, and what she's been telling people, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I slid the phone back to her. "Thanks for telling me." "I'm sorry," she added. "I know this isn't easy." But it was. In a way, it was the easiest part of the entire ordeal. Because it made everything make sense. The constant defensiveness. The desperate need to control the narrative after the breakup. The slap, an impulsive act, yes, but also a distraction. A detonator she hoped would make me react so she wouldn't have to explain why she'd been with someone else behind my back. Now I saw it clearly. She wasn't just overwhelmed. She was hiding. I went home that night and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at the blank wall across from me. The peace I'd felt since she left was still there, but now it was joined by something else, clarity. Closure, even. I didn't need to confront her. I didn't need a dramatic showdown. But a part of me wanted to see what she'd do if the truth came out. So I made a plan. The next day, I sent her a message. "We need to talk. Come by tomorrow at 7. Her reply came within minutes. "Finally. I knew you'd come to your senses. I'll be there." No apology. No caution. Just confidence. She thought she'd won. I spent the next evening preparing. I cleaned the living room, cleared the coffee table, and placed a printed copy of the photo in the center. Nothing else. Just the picture. The only decoration left behind from a broken engagement. At 7 o'clock sharp, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find her standing there, dressed up, too dressed up. Hair done, makeup perfect. Like she was stepping back into the role of the bride-to-be, the partner who just needed to smooth things over. "Walter," she said, smiling. "I'm glad you reached out." I didn't respond. Just motioned toward the couch. She stepped in, confident, comfortable. But her smile faltered the moment she saw the photo on the table. She picked it up slowly, her expression tightening. "What's this?" "You tell me," I said, arms folded. She looked up, feigning confusion. "It's not what it looks like." "Then explain it," I said. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. "It was just a bad night," she began. "I was feeling lonely. Clarence was just trying to cheer me up. It didn't mean anything. You were kissing him. She hesitated. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. No, I said firmly. You knew exactly what you wanted. You just didn't want to take responsibility for it. She sat down slowly, photo still in hand. Her expression crumbled. I didn't plan to hurt you, she said, voice barely above a whisper. But you did, I said. Repeatedly. And then you tried to paint me as the problem when I set a boundary. She looked up at me, eyes glossy. Walter, please. I'm sorry. I messed up. But I never stopped loving you. I'll do anything to make it right. I shook my head. You can't fix this. Not because I'm unforgiving. But because trust doesn't regenerate after this kind of betrayal. And love, real love, doesn't coexist with manipulation. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I've changed. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. Good, I said. But that's your journey now. Not ours. She tried to protest again, but I raised my hand. You made your choice, Mildred. And I'm finally making mine. Mildred stared at me for a long moment, searching for something in my face, weakness, maybe. Regret. But there was none. For the first time in a long while, I knew exactly who I was and what I stood for. She wiped her cheeks and stood slowly. So that's it? After 4 years, you're just walking away? I nodded. I'm walking away from what this became, not what we were. What we were, was real, at one point. But what it turned into? That's not something I want to build a life on. She turned to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. I really am sorry, Walter. I nodded once. Good. Now go. The door clicked shut behind her. And that was it. No screaming. No slamming doors. Just the quiet sound of the past walking out of my life. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel angry. Just free. In the weeks that followed, life returned to a new kind of normal. The kind where I didn't wake up wondering which version of Mildred I'd see that day. The kind where I could come home without a pit in my stomach. I caught up with old friends I hadn't seen in months, buried myself in work, and even took up hiking again, something I'd abandoned when my weekends became packed with floral arrangements and seating charts. Then, one evening, I got a call from Elliot. You're not gonna believe this, he said, already laughing before I could answer. What now? Clarence dumped her. I blinked. Wait. Seriously? Oh, yeah. And get this, she was cheating on him too. With someone from her gym. Apparently Clarence found out, and he tossed all her stuff onto the lawn. There's a video. It's everywhere. I sat back in my chair, stunned for a moment, then laughed. Not in a spiteful way. It was more of a release, a reminder that sometimes, people's patterns catch up to them all on their own. Karma's got good timing, I said, still grinning. That's not even the best part, Elliot continued. Her little social media defender? Paula? She's gone quiet. Deleted half her posts. Seems like even she can't spin this one. I didn't bother looking for the video. I didn't need to see Mildred crying on a lawn or chasing after someone else's car. I wasn't angry anymore, not at her, not at what she did, not even at the time I lost. I'd learned something too valuable to regret any of it. People reveal themselves over time. Sometimes gently. Sometimes loudly. And sometimes all at once, like a slap in the middle of a living room surrounded by wedding notes. And when they do, when someone shows you clearly who they are, you have two choices. Pretend you didn't see it, or believe them. I chose to believe. Mutual friends slowly started reaching out, some offering awkward apologies for doubting me, others just curious to hear my side. But I didn't feel the need to rehash it. My story was simple now, it wasn't working. I moved on. That was enough. Even when I saw her name pop up again, a text, a missed call, a message request, I didn't open them. What could she possibly say now that hadn't already been said? I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was just done. The house finally felt like mine again. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. I'd rearranged the furniture, taken down the engagement photos, and tossed out the binder filled with swatches and timelines. In its place, I found something far more valuable, clarity. Self-respect. Boundaries. A calmness that no relationship had ever brought me because, until now, I hadn't learned how to choose myself. It would have been easy to go back. To forgive quickly. To believe promises and accept apologies just because someone said the right thing at the right time. But peace isn't built on guilt or longing or fear of being alone. It's built on mutual trust, respect, and love that doesn't have to hurt to be real. So no, I didn't walk away from something good. I walked away from something broken. And in doing so, I gave myself a chance at something better. Maybe someday I'll meet someone new. Someone kind, steady, honest. But for now, I'm okay just learning to enjoy the quiet. And knowing that the next time someone raises their voice, or a hand, or a red flag, I'll see it for what it is. And I'll walk, not because I'm cold or unforgiving, but because I finally know the difference between fixing and settling. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.